In 2000, Mr. Grandieri walked onto Malvern Prep's campus as a freshman from Media, Pennsylvania. No one would have known how much he received from Malvern and how much he gave back.
I grew up in Media, Pennsylvania, which is about 15 minutes from Malvern's campus. I went to a school, even though I lived 15 minutes away, my brothers went to a different high school, so I was fortunate enough to come out here in 8th grade for a basketball tournament and fell in love with the campus. Came for a visitation day with my parents and loved every second of it and was fortunate enough to be able to.
So if you were going to ask me about Mr. Grandieri's work ethic, I would say it was probably really strong in school and also on the basketball court. The reason I say that is because he went to the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League school. And in order to go to a school like that, you really have to have a strong work ethic, both athletically if you're going to play a sport, and also in the classroom, and he certainly had that.
Mr. Grandieri was a model of a true friar. He was a true worker and had a tremendous work ethic in the classroom and on the basketball court. But what really stood out about Mr. Grandieri was the leadership he possessed. Whether it was picking up a teammate or helping them out in the hallway, Mr. Grandieri was a model of St. Augustine.
Favorite building? My favorite building on campus, I think, has to be the cafeteria at the Stewart Hall. I like to eat, and that was the best time because you get to spend an hour with your buddies and make some jokes and laugh and have fun and relax. That was by far my favorite building. I guess history was probably my favorite subject.
Yeah, I love history.
History and then law. A teacher here, Mr. McLaughlin, was he recently passed away, unfortunately, but he was an awesome teacher and made it certainly fun to learn about. Something I really didn't know a lot about. Basketball. That was I love basketball to this day. Now that I'm older and overweight, I tend to play more golf than basketball. But basketball is my first. Teacher that influenced me most was probably Mr. Kindon, because he wasn't afraid to tell you what you didn't want to hear, but you knew it was true. I remember I was a freshman, didn't really know a whole lot of people, and I think he took a liking to me and kind of treated me like a son, and just kind of gave me was a great mentor for me for the 4 years that I was here, and still to this day. But he's one of many teachers, and that's, I think, what makes this place so special, and I hope you guys realize it, is the teachers like the Mr. Watsons, the Mr. Dohertys of the world, Mr. Legner, Mr. Stewart. There's just so many great people here, and enjoy your time because it's
not only on the court. He showed superior leadership in not a aggressive way, but more on more as a relationship, a companion, part of the basketball team. He never degraded anybody. He was always very supportive. And he was probably the friendliest guy you ever knew. When he was off the court and he was here in the athlete training room, he was always supporting people also inside the room here. And I just remember now as well that he ended up injuring his knee right before he went to Penn. And anybody he would rehab just for a few weeks before he ended up going to Penn because he had surgery. But whenever he was in here, he was always very supportive of everybody else, and also trying to lift up everybody's spirit as well. Well, it's interesting because also now you're bringing me back to memories of Brian, and we ended up going to dinner one time. And I don't go out to dinner with a lot of athletes. I'll do it with a group of students sometimes, but usually not one-on-one. But I guess we had that special relationship. I love the family. I actually had a close relationship with the whole family as well. And we ended up going to, I think it was Outback. And apparently he said he knew somebody at Outback. So we both met in, I think it was the Springfield Outback. It's a steakhouse, so it was like Outback. And we must have waited a whole hour before we got in. So we used to kid around. I used to kid with him about him knowing so many people. Good thing, we only waited an hour, instead of, I guess 3 hours. So him knowing somebody at Outback. But we had an awesome dinner. We got steaks. We had the blooming onion, if that was the Outback. So I guess the whole relationship, and it's not just Brian, it's what Malvern brings. It's that brotherhood. And so one of those, I think that also brings back a lot of memories about Brian, is just reminding me about other students and the brotherhood here at Malvern.
Glad you asked that question, because we had a really special connection. I never taught him, I never coached him, but when I was back when he was a senior, I was the disciplinarian in the high school. Actually, I wasn't the actual disciplinarian, I was the assistant disciplinarian. And back then, there was a senior lounge where all the seniors could go and only the seniors could go. And it was right next to the discipline office. Uh-huh. And what ended up happening his senior year is during his lunch period, the senior lounge would get so crowded with seniors that there wasn't any space to sit in there. Mm-hmm. And one day in the fall, he came into the discipline office and ate his lunch, and we kind of hung out and we talked. And then he came back the next day, and we hung out and we talked. And he came back the next day. And next thing you know, he was eating his lunch in the disciplinary office, and next thing you know, his friends started coming. And what happened was about 10 guys from the senior class would come into the discipline office every day during their lunch. They'd eat their lunch and hang out and just kind of, we would talk about things, and it was really informal. So I got to know Brian on a really kind of special level, if you will. It's not the kind of thing that usually develops between a student and a teacher, but since he kind of came in and we had the opportunity to talk, we got to talk about a lot of different things, and we had a lot of laughs, and I think the other seniors really enjoyed it. And I was telling you earlier about this thing called the dog pound. We call it, for some reason, one of Brian's friends, when he was in middle school, had given me the nickname of Was Dog. Yeah. And so when he was a senior, they would still call me Was Dog. And one of the guys that gave me that nickname in 8th grade was one of the guys that would come and hang out and eat lunch every day in the discipline office. So we renamed the discipline office the Dog Pound. And all these guys would come and hang out, and we'd have a laugh. And it got to be a thing, like people knew about it, other teachers knew about it. Yeah. Mr. Stewart, who was the headmaster at the time, he knew about it. So he would always ask me in the hallways when he saw me, how's it going in the Dog Pound? So it was a really kind of special thing that I had with this group of young men, which was, to this day, it's still kind of one of the, I would say, highlights of my career as a teacher, was this experience I had with these guys for about 6 months, just informally hanging out and talking about life. It was really great.
With the great qualities that Mr. Grandieri had, he came to be one of the most athletically accomplished alum to ever attend Malvern. He is on the banner for reaching 1,000 points in his basketball career at Malvern Prep. He's made amazing bonds with his brothers that will have to last a lifetime, especially with his teachers that speak very highly of him.
Yeah, I think we were fortunate to have great coaches here that have coached basketball a very long time. So I just tried to absorb as much information as I could from my coaches, from my teammates, and just practice. I think the harder you work, the more results you get, and if you trust the people around you, it makes it that much easier. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. Yes, I played basketball at the University of Pennsylvania, so I was fortunate enough to play at the Palestra, which is one of the coolest gyms in the world. Hopefully you guys can get down there to watch a game. It's awesome. So I was very fortunate enough to be able to do that.
After graduating at Malvern, Mr. Grandieri set off on a new chapter of his life. In 2005, he attended the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This school is a part of the Ivy League Conference, which is the most academically prestigious school leagues in college sports. In his years at Penn, he had an outstanding career, averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. In 2008, Mr. Grandieri graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. He then co-started a business that works with insurance. It is called Tri-Ben Insurance.